So how do we know if institutions are actually changing, if they're building this capacity for their researchers to do public engagement? One way to do that is by using the EDGE tool, which was created by the UK National Coordinating Centre for Public Engagement. And this, you have a copy of it on your table. This is a way for you to quickly assess whether support for public engagement and capacity for public engagement is emerging, developing, gripping, or embedded at your institution, EDGE. So the EDGE tool focuses on three main categories of institutional capacity. The first is purpose. That is your university creating a commitment to public engagement within its mission, within its strategy documents, and is it embedding champions for public engagement at all levels? Specific metrics for that include, is public engagement embedded in the mission? Who are the leaders and champions for public engagement? And how is that mission and how are those leaders communicating about the importance of public engagement and the public engagement activities that are taking place at the institution? The next segment is processes. Has your institution invested in systems and processes that facilitate involvement, that maximize impact of public engagement, and help ensure quality and value of public engagement? So some of the metrics related to that include support. How are you supporting faculty, staff, and students that want to do public engagement? What sorts of learning and training opportunities are available for scientists who want to improve their public communication skills or public engagement skills? And finally, how are you recognizing the people who are doing public engagement? What sorts of award structures or promotion and tenure metrics are in place? The last piece that the EDGE tool calls out for institutional capacity is people. Are you involving faculty, staff, and students and members of the public using their energy, expertise, and feedback to shape the public engagement strategy for the institution? And so for this, there are metrics related to each of those groups, the faculty and staff, the students, and members of the public. So now it's your turn. Hopefully you have all taken the copy of the EDGE tool that is on your table. Yeah, can somebody who has it in their hand maybe just wave it around if you're not sure what it is? Perfect. So there's also an interactive tool if you don't like writing. You can go to, it's kind of a long URL, but you can also just Google EDGE tool. And there's an interactive version that you can click through. This is also something that you can then give to other people at your institution, ask them to do their own assessments of institutional capacity. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is take out your pens or pencils and do the EDGE assessment for your own institution. So I'll give you about 10 minutes to actually look through it. And on the plan document, which is this one, there's a place on the front for you to summarize what the landscape for institutional change is at your institution. So in case you would like to make notes about specific things that you've circled on the EDGE tool, you can do that here on your plan.
So with the EDGE tool, this is something that, and I heard a couple people say this isn't necessarily something that you just go off and do on your own, but this is something that you can use to have a conversation, use it as sort of the basis of a conversation with your colleagues, with administrators, with others that are interested in building public engagement capacity. You might even pass it out to a bunch of people and see how their responses vary, and use that to sort of really do a nice landscape of what public engagement looks like at your institution. So what we're going to do next is walk through the plan document, which is the second one-page handout that's on your tables. And we're going to do, because it's a pretty big group, we're going to do a little bit of self-facilitation with this. But I and Chris and Casey will also help you out as we walk through each step in the plan document. The first thing on that plan is thinking about your goals and objectives. What is it that you want to do in building institutional capacity for public engagement? So you might have some big picture goals. Those tend to be sort of the three big categories: getting public engagement into the purpose, building the processes that will support engagement, making sure that you're engaging all the different people at your institution. But you may also have some individual goals, perhaps for your own teaching, for your own center, for things that you want to do yourself versus things that maybe you want to encourage others at your institution to take on. As you're thinking about your goals and objectives, you may also have some short-term things, like if you're making your syllabus for a class for next semester, you might be thinking about how you might put public engagement activities into that particular class. You may also have longer-term goals related, again, to some of those bigger goals, some of those really building capacity across your department, across your institution. So as we're talking today, I encourage you to sort of think big about some of those goals, but also for the plan you're going to work on today, I encourage you to think a little bit smaller, a little bit more like, what do you want to do in the next semester or year, and try to pick out a very specific objective for where you want to develop institutional capacity to support public engagement. So again, you might want to think about making your goals around one of those three broad categories: purpose, process, people. And you might think about your objectives as fitting into one or a few of the 9 focal areas: mission, leadership, communication, support, learning, recognition, staff, public, and students. You'll see there were, I think, 3 copies at each table of the questions and strategies document. So as we're going through our conversation today, you can also get that in the online toolbox. So that document is meant to help you think a little bit more concretely about specific goals and objectives, as well as approaches to building institutional capacity. So you can use that when we break back out into the small groups. And hopefully that will help you get a little bit more concrete in your thinking about how you want to build institutional capacity. That's such a good question. Yeah, so the question was, when you're thinking about your institution, what does institution mean? And I have been quite vague on purpose because each person's concept of institution might be a little bit different. So your target for change may be trying to build capacity across your entire university. It may be that you're trying to build capacity within your department or a particular school at the university. So that's something that I think you can, again, think, is it big picture? Are you trying to change something across the entire system? Or are you getting a little bit more downscaled and trying to change maybe something within your department first? There are arguments for sort of starting either from the bottom up or from the top down, particularly that first box on purpose, where you're trying to embed public engagement into things like the mission and vision, often takes place at a broader scale. But that doesn't mean that you have to focus at the whole university level. All right, so I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to jot down what you are thinking about for your goals and objectives. Hopefully you have at least started to think about which of the categories they might fall into, whether it's under purpose, focusing on the mission, the leadership, the communication, on the processes, so building support systems, focusing on learning and training, focusing on recognition, or people, focusing on building capacity within the staff, within the students, or within the public. What we're going to do from here on for the rest of the session is first choose one thing to focus on developing your plan for right now, because we've only got another hour together. You can use this same planning process to think about other objectives you might have related to building institutional capacity for public engagement, and develop out a bigger plan for institutional change. And I hope you will, and I hope you will tell me about what your institutional change efforts are moving forward. What we're going to do for right now is break into small groups based on which of those areas you would like to focus on developing your plan for today. So a few things that will be helpful to you are that stapled document, the questions and strategies document, which addresses each of the areas for institutional change. So share that at your table, or you can get your own soft copy of it at the tinyurl.com/NABI2019. So you can refer back to that once you leave today. And once I flip the next slide, it's going to start counting down. So you're going to start with your just introductions around your table and your goals and objectives, and then we'll move through the plan from there. What I'm going to ask is, as you're thinking at your table, maybe we could have 2 or 3 people just come up here, and you don't have to be the official reporter, but just sort of share maybe some of the cool insights or ideas or challenges that you heard from around your table.
Dr. Lena from Pittsburgh talked about all the competencies that you need as an engagement professional, and maybe looking at that and seeing whether on your team you have somebody who's got experience in community organizing and could, really build a network for you that can help you reach a broader audience with you, and that's an institutional infrastructure that could be built.
We had a really far-reaching and wide-ranging conversation at our table, but we really focused a lot on how do you bring people on board? How do we make sure that no matter where we are in the institution, that we can get our supervisors, the administration, and faculty members on board? So we talked a lot about what's that argument? And to use Wanda Ward's impactful statement, how do we make sure that what we're doing is impactful? So one of the things we talked about was that so many of our institutions right now are being evaluated on student persistence and retention. And so showing how public engagement is really of value to our students is really key. So I brought up Bates College, that everything in the curriculum is around that public engagement. We also talked about making sure that faculty can be on board through promotion and tenure. So the example of Purdue University, that you can state that you want to get promoted or tenured based upon the scholarship of engagement. And so that's a really good example that we can talk about from around the country. And also our table talked a lot about the career awards and how the importance of prestige and the way that our faculty who get career awards are really engaging with the public is important at the institutional level as well.
So just to build off that a little bit, one of the things that we talked about was just incentives. And so depending on the audience, what the different incentives are. And so one of the things we brought up is awards and recognition. Not just within the institution, I do think we need lots of those internal awards, but also externally, and getting people competitive and realizing the outreach and having those awards, that it makes you more competitive to get those awards. Another thing that we talked about was just generally, we're looking a lot more at foundation dollars and trying to get some private funding. And outreach is a wonderful way to reach donors and to reach alumni and show them all the great things the university is doing.
All right.
So with our last couple minutes, I want to thank you all for coming today and having such lively discussions around your tables.